The city of Chicago has been paying gobs of tax dollars to create shelters to house illegal immigrants in the Windy City. I know the people of Appalachia and Western North Carolina would love to have some of that money for shelter. But a whistleblower from one of those facilities has shared with our friend and next guest, Terry Newsome, his concerns that your money in Chicago is not only supporting the invasion by illegals, but is also being blown on pricey no-show jobs for the people who work at these housing facilities. Here's one of the many email exchanges between the whistleblower and Securitas, the company in charge of providing security for these facilities, in which the whistleblower was told that, quote, Securitas is not contracted with the mission, but rather the city of Chicago as a whole. As such, there is not a need for our mission staff to complete staff tracking at this time. To which the whistleblower replied, quote, the reason I created the tracker was to protect company assets. How else to know which invoices are legit and which aren't? It gets better, though. According to CBS News, quote, the Chicago City Council on Thursday also voted to accept $33 million in federal funding to help cover previous and future costs of addressing the needs of migrants. These stories confirm a wider, more troubling picture of multiple blue cities, such as Chicago, spending tax dollars to give illegals housing, as well as debit and or credit cards. Joining us now is Terry Newsome. He's the host of Behind Enemy Lines podcast and the man who brought us these troubling whistleblower claims. Terry, good to see you. I mean, it's very troubling, but it's also just as we suspected, right?
Yeah, they've seemed to do a good job at trying to hide like organized crime or something, layers of how they hide this money and how it's being spent and how it starts from the federal government, is pushed through NGOs, then through the city of Chicago, then distributed amongst their friends and different consulting firms and security guard firms and um, food organizations that feed these illegal immigrants. And then you have the leadership who doesn't even care if they're paying the appropriate fees for these services, doesn't even care.
I just want to clarify too, and I don't know if we have it, but I believe you were also shared a disclosure from a whistleblower who revealed that they were making $1,000 a day, right, to work in one of
Yeah.
these migrant shelters that would initially add up to a very lucrative job, $330,000 a year. It actually started as more like $360,000 a year. They reduced it by 30,000, but still, I mean, $330,000 a year for one worker is quite a price tag, Terry.
Yeah, it's crazy. So this guy worked at a mid-level shelter. There was 27 shelters. I've gotten the names of all the shelters, the names of the people who ran it.
Sorry, what do you mean by mid-level? Just to clarify.
I think he only had 500 people at his shelter. Like some of the ones that
Okay.
we've covered in the past in Chicago or Pilsen had upwards of 2,000. So this is the structure
Oh,
that he
okay,
shared.
gotcha.
He was like a PMO, right? And he would work 12 and a half hours a day, 7 days a week. Um, and then he would get 360,000. But after he started, they lowered it to 330,000. Then he had two project managers that worked under him. Again, there are more people that work at the larger shelters. He had one that worked morning, one that worked evening shifts. These people received $275,000 a year. Then below that, there was two operational folks, one that's in charge of shelter operations and the other one that's in charge of staffing and resources. Those individuals got $200,000 a year. So keep in mind that doesn't account for the security guard services, which he shared. Though he put together an Excel spreadsheet to try to show the city of Chicago, hey, number one, these people aren't showing up to provide security, and I think we know how dangerous some of these shelters are, right? So this was in the beginning, and there you
Wow.
go. Look at the green. That's the only times they showed up in this one snapshot of what was shared with me. And then when he elevated
Huh.
it to getting support for Marcela Gonzalez, who's on that email, she basically said, "Don't worry about it. It's not your responsibility." And so I'm assuming the guards don't show up, they don't get paid. But I bet you my right arm that Securitas got paid. They got paid for every hour
Uh-huh.
they were signing the contract. And then he's also the same one that told me about the $2,000 on debit cards. So when he first got there, he started in 2021. And he said the NGOs are getting money from the federal government, right? So the government feeds it to them, then the NGOs either give it to the city of Chicago or they'll give it directly to the migrants. They were getting 2,000 per person per adult debit cards. And then you don't really know it's coming from the federal government. And then, we came across some contracts and other FOIA documents that were shared. And I don't know if you have those here showing open kitchens and Catholic Charities got tens of millions of dollars coming from the DFS, Department of Family Services, and they got the money from FEMA. So FEMA sends it to the city of Chicago, and then they write a check, and the checks are going to Open Kitchens, who got, I think, $25-30 million. And then there's some instances of how Catholic Charities was also being paid through that same channel that started with FEMA. It says it on the procurement contract. So FEMA's telling us that they're not really dedicating it towards these illegals. It's not true.
You know how mad that makes me, Terry? That makes me so livid because I know you didn't hear this, but I just shared some updates from Western North Carolina and the plight of the American citizens, the Appalachian Americans there who are living in tents. Some of the parents there are facing getting, the state taking their children away because they're living in tents and it's getting cold and they have no homes for their children. And to hear that this is what FEMA is doing with their money absolutely makes me livid. And I know I don't say that a lot on my show because this is kind of a news show, but that is so. Just following what we've talked about today with Western North Carolina, we're going to start covering more in depth. It grates me. I just hope we don't even have enough time. Look at everything that's happening before Donald Trump takes office. I mean, we still have a matter of weeks. It's such a dumpster fire every single day that we're in dire straits every single day before he even takes office, even though it's just, it's just a few weeks away.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my rant.
No, yeah. And another thing this guy said, so think about it, he makes $330,000. He said that every one of these people, most of them are from out of state. When they get into the airport, they start their assignment, they all have their own rental cars. They're all put up in housing. They all get
So they're
food.
paying for rental cars for the workers too.
He said we don't even need them. We all go to the same place and stay in the same hotel, and they're just sitting there in places. So you think about that $300 and some $1,000 person burden costs is well over $500,000 for us, right? Per person. There's 27 shelters, right? So it's just ridiculous that we've been wasting.
So is this whistleblower still working with this NGO?
No. And then, matter of fact, he was contracted there through Favorite Staffing. And I'm like, wait a minute, isn't that a nursing company? It's a nursing company that then got the contract. This is going through cronies. Got the contract. Think about so if he was making 360 or 330, this Favorite Staffing's making money above that, right? So because they're gonna run through on their paper on their contract. So I wonder what our full burden cost is per person. They're making profit off of that guy. They're marking it up. They just don't give it to him and not make it. So Favorite Staffing was a nursing staffing company that then changed their name to help support some of this contracting stuff that they're doing for the city of Chicago, which is absurd. He said he worked for 5 different companies the whole time that he was working there. And there was another case where he told me the person that took over for him, he started in 2021, and that person only lasted 5 months because she was doing some strong arming of some of the citizens that are in there. She was a Hispanic person. She got fired. She got caught doing improper things there. And then another news story, I got a DM message from a lady from the north side that she helps manage 90 units for a very elderly man who's getting paid by Catholic Charities. And we've saw it in the past how you did a show on it. Remember, they're putting them in 55 apartments a day. So this woman said that he's got a bunch of Catholic charity tenants, and then the Hispanic people they put in there, they're subleasing it to gang members. So she's I'm going to meet with her and try to get this, get to the bottom of this for us.
And speaking of those gang members, I want to take a look at this video, Terry, about one of the contractors bringing in illegals into Chicago. And this was prior to the election. Let's listen.
Hey, candidates, How are you? Say hi to Justin Graham from All Hands Consulting out of Texas. Are you here on contract from All Hands Consulting? I got your stuff too. I'll find that from the last time. So are you guys proud of what you're doing to America? Huh? Last time you had an American flag on your forum, and you're bringing all these Trent Largo criminals into our country. Are you proud? Is it a smile meaning you're proud? How could you have an American flag on your a tattoo when you're bringing Trent Largo into our country?
Speaking of Agua, I think we now know that they've spread into Chicago was one of the early cities that they moved into, right? But they're now spread across 16 states, including my home state of Virginia. There was just a recent incident, and it was found in Fairfax County that it was this act of violence was committed by a Agua gang member from Venezuela. Terry, the incoming administration has said that they will enact mass deportation starting day one, but you're well aware of how widespread now this infiltration of what some have suggested aren't just a gang, that there's some kind of even paramilitary type operation out of Venezuela. They've become so embedded and integrated into the country. How fast, how feasible is it that the Trump administration can quickly deport these gang members?
Well, first of all, that they need to hire local, and I think Tom mentioned that he's going to hire local people that know the cities. The city of Chicago. You're not going to get help from anyone here, so I think that's something he's going to have to do pretty quickly. Another problem you're going to have is that these people are using, the Catholic charity addresses, the Inn of Chicago, the Standard Club, right? Those are their addresses until they go out and they go in the suburbs or wherever they are. So it's not going to be that easy to track them down or identify them, as we're told by the government when they were coming in. We're going to know where everybody's at. That's a total lie. I had a couple of friends. Tom said he'd hire retired people. I got two friends who are ex-ATF agents that just retired, a Cook County sheriff. Well, I sent text to Tom. They want to help. They said, yeah, we'll come out of retirement to help. So I think, and I hope once he does get his organization in place, he's going to have local law enforcement that will be hired into his organization to help them quickly round up and identify these people. I know the city of Chicago police officers, and we talked about this. They don't like this. They don't want this stuff going on. So I know they're going to help. I know they're going to be constrained by Brandon Johnson and Pritzker, but I know they'll probably do things behind the scenes that will allow them to make Tom Homan successful.
Yeah, you've shared video with our audience of police officers, who wouldn't explicitly say it, but clearly they were sympathetic to your work and opposed to what they were being forced to take part in by the city of Chicago. Terry Newsome, not just local law enforcement. I think that Tom Homan, as the immigration czar, will also be people like you who have investigated this, and where the people are and the tricks they use. I think you all in the ground in different cities, and there's, you're in Chicago, but there's people like you in other cities as well, and states, will be very helpful to Tom Homan and his team as they look to right this wrong and clean out our country. And I suspect you'll get some kind of communication from him. Terry Newsome, always good to see you, my friend. He is the host of Behind Enemy Lines, which you can catch on both Rumble and YouTube. And you can also follow him on X at Terry Newsome 357. Thanks for sharing this exclusive whistleblower disclosure with us, Terry.
Thank you. Thanks.